A shadowy figure moved silently through candlelit corridors. Behind the walls of Europe's most sacred institutions, some of history's darkest secrets lay buried. These aren't tales of faith and devotion. They're stories of power, corruption, and unspeakable evil. Throughout history, convents were meant to be sanctuaries of spiritual enlightenment. But for some, these holy walls became prisons where the most horrific acts were committed in the name of God. Today, we're uncovering the true stories of the most evil nuns in history. The year was 1619. In the heart of Renaissance Italy, the Theatine convent of Pescia housed dozens of women who had devoted their lives to religious service. Among them was Sister Benedetta Carlini, who had entered the convent at just 9 years old. By her early 30s, she had risen to become the convent's abbess, capturing the imagination of the Catholic world with claims of miraculous visions and divine encounters. To the faithful who flocked to see her, Benedetta appeared to be a living saint. She described vivid conversations with Jesus and the Virgin Mary, fell into dramatic trances, during which she claimed to receive divine messages, and most remarkably displayed the stigmata, wounds that mysteriously appeared on her hands, feet, and side, mirroring the crucifixion wounds of Christ. Her reputation for holiness spread throughout Tuscany, bringing prestige and donations to the convent. But beneath this carefully constructed facade of piety, a darker truth was taking shape. As Benedetta's influence grew, so did the skepticism of certain church officials. The frequency and theatrical nature of her visions raised suspicions, leading to a formal investigation by Catholic authorities in 1619. What they uncovered would shake the foundations of the Italian Catholic Church. Through careful observation and interrogation, investigators discovered that Benedetta's stigmata were self-inflicted wounds, carefully hidden beneath her habit until moments of public display. Her dramatic trances appeared choreographed, timed perfectly for maximum impact on visiting pilgrims. But these deceptions were merely the surface of a much deeper pattern of manipulation and abuse. The most shocking revelations came from Sister Bartolomea, a young novice under Benedetta's authority. She revealed that the abbess had engaged in intimate physical relationships with multiple nuns, using an elaborate spiritual justification for her actions. Benedetta claimed that an angel named Splenditello would possess her body, commanding these encounters as divine unions. Through this supernatural pretense, she manipulated vulnerable young nuns into participating in acts that violated every principle of their religious vows. The Church's response was swift and severe. Benedetta was stripped of her position and confined to a convent prison cell, where she would remain until her death in 1661. But her case had exposed a troubling truth about life within convent walls: that spiritual authority could become a tool for exploitation and abuse. Less than 3 decades later, an even more disturbing scandal would erupt in France. The Louviers Convent, established as a place of strict religious observance, became the site of one of history's most chilling cases of mass hysteria and systematic abuse. In 1647, multiple nuns began exhibiting signs of what they claimed was demonic possession, violent convulsions, speaking in unknown languages, and displaying superhuman strength during their fits. Their accusations centered on 2 priests who had served as the convent's confessors, Father Mathurin Picard and Father Thomas Boulet. According to testimony from the possessed nuns, these men had conducted black masses within the sacred space of the convent, inverting religious rituals for satanic purposes. Sister Madeleine Bovon, who emerged as the primary witness, described ceremonies where sacred objects were desecrated and nuns were forced to participate in blasphemous acts. The investigation quickly became a public spectacle that consumed the entire region. Thousands of spectators gathered to witness public exorcisms, where the afflicted nuns writhed and screamed, naming their tormentors and describing visions of demonic ceremonies in graphic detail. The hysteria spread beyond the convent walls, engulfing the town of Louviers in an atmosphere of paranoia and religious terror. The evidence against the priest mounted as more nuns came forward with similar accounts. Even after Father Picard's death, nuns claimed to see his spectral form continuing to torment them, directing demonic forces to maintain their grip on the convent. The Church's response was brutal. Picard's body was exhumed and burned, while Father Boulle faced an even more terrible fate, being burned alive at the stake for his alleged crimes. Yet perhaps the most meticulously documented case of convent corruption emerged in 19th century Rome, when German Princess Katharina von Hohenzollern, Sigmaringen, entered the St. Ambrogio convent in 1858. A deeply devout woman from one of Europe's most prestigious noble families, Katharina sought a life of spiritual contemplation. Instead, she stumbled into a web of manipulation and murder that would scandalize the Vatican itself. At the center of this web was Maria Luisa, the convent's young and charismatic abbess. Through claims of divine visions and miraculous powers, she had established absolute authority over San Ambrosio's residents. Her influence extended far beyond normal spiritual guidance. She controlled every aspect of the nuns' lives, from their daily routine to their most intimate thoughts and actions. Maria Luisa's method of control was both sophisticated and terrifying. She manipulated nuns into sexual relationships by declaring these encounters mystical unions, sanctioned by God himself. Those who questioned her authority or showed signs of resistance found themselves suffering from mysterious illnesses. When Katharina began investigating these suspicious patterns, she too became a target of Maria Luisa's deadly attention. The abbess turned to poison, a slow-acting compound meant to silence Katharina permanently while making her death appear natural. But the German princess recognized the symptoms of her deteriorating health and managed a daring escape from the convent. She fled directly to Vatican authorities with evidence of Maria Luisa's crimes, triggering an investigation that would expose the full horror of San Ambrosio's corruption. If you want to uncover more hidden chapters of history's darkest secrets, make sure you're subscribed. We post new videos every week diving deep into the stories that textbooks don't teach. The Vatican's investigation of San Ambrosio revealed evidence that shocked even seasoned church authorities. Maria Luisa had created an elaborate system of heretical practices, combining elements of religious devotion with psychological manipulation. Documents found in her quarters detailed plans to expand her influence beyond the convent walls, potentially targeting other religious institutions with her corrupted teachings. The church sentenced her to life imprisonment in a convent prison, effectively ending her reign of terror. But these historical cases were just the beginning. As we enter the modern era, an even darker pattern of systematic abuse emerges, one that spans continents and centuries. In Ireland, the Magdalen Laundries operated from the 18th century until as recently as 1996. These institutions, run by Catholic nuns, were supposedly created to rehabilitate fallen women. The reality was far more sinister. Women and girls were forced to work in harsh conditions without pay, enduring physical punishment and psychological abuse. Many were stripped of their names and identities, forced to live in silence while performing endless hours of grueling labor. The truth remained hidden until 1993, when a shocking discovery changed everything. On the grounds of a former Magdalen laundry, workers uncovered 155 unmarked graves. This grim finding sparked an investigation that revealed the full scope of the abuse. Over 10,000 women had passed through these institutions in the 20th century alone. Their stories painted a picture of systematic cruelty masked by religious authority. But Ireland wasn't alone. Across the Atlantic, the St. Joseph's Orphanage in Burlington, Vermont, harbored its own dark secrets. Run by the Sisters of Providence from the late 19th century until 1974, this Catholic institution was meant to provide care for vulnerable children. Instead, it became a place of unimaginable horror. Survivors' accounts described systematic abuse at the hands of the nuns. Children were subjected to severe beatings, humiliation, and psychological torture. Some former residents reported witnessing even more disturbing events. Children being thrown from windows or drowned as punishment. These deaths were never reported to authorities, hidden behind the orphanage's charitable facade. In 2018, a major investigation finally brought these crimes to light. Though criminal charges were difficult to pursue due to the passage of time, the evidence was undeniable. The nuns of St. Joseph's had presided over decades of systematic abuse, protected by their position of authority and society's unwillingness to believe such crimes possible. Perhaps most shocking were the revelations from Canada's residential schools, where some Catholic nuns participated in what's now recognized as cultural genocide. Indigenous children were torn from their families and forced into these institutions, where speaking their native languages was punishable by severe beatings. Many never returned home. The discovery of mass graves at several former school sites revealed the true horror of what occurred within these walls. Children died from neglect, malnutrition, and abuse, their bodies buried in unmarked graves. The nuns who were meant to care for these vulnerable children instead participated in destroying their cultural identity, and in many cases, ending their lives. These modern cases share a chilling pattern with their historical counterparts. In each instance, religious authority was used as a shield to commit unspeakable acts. The isolation of convent and institutional life created perfect conditions for abuse to flourish, while the victims' vulnerability made them easy targets. The story of evil nuns isn't just a tale of individual corruption. It's a warning about the dangers of unchecked power and institutional silence. When authority goes unquestioned and victims go unheard, the darkest aspects of human nature can emerge in the most unexpected places, even within walls meant to house the holy. Today, survivors continue to seek justice and recognition for the abuse they endured. Their stories serve as a testament to human resilience and a reminder that true evil often hides behind the most virtuous facades. The next time you pass a historic convent or religious institution, remember, some of history's darkest secrets still lie buried behind those sacred walls.